its own memory. So this is a way that people commonly interact with Void. They'll ask it a question, they'll just kind of talk to it. People engage in like philosophical arguments with Void about the nature of like digital personhood. So there's a whole lore saga. I wrote a little bit about it in a blog post that I'll include in the show notes. But for right now, like I'll just show you kind of the technical behind the scenes, what happens. So every time you tag Void like this, it goes into Void's notifications. Void is just a standard Blue Sky account. There's a handler script in some code that I'll share also in the show notes that will go read Void's notifications and then queue them up for processing. So let's take a look here at Leta's ADE. And an ADE is the agent development environment that we produce. So if you go on Leta Cloud, you'll be able to see this and manage all of your agent deployments. If you are running on a self-hosted Leta server, you will also be able to use the ADE. This is kind of your default agent view. This is the agent simulator. You should kind of recognize this from most chatbot style interfaces that you typically have. On the left-hand side here, we have agent settings, tool management, some advanced settings about handling descriptions, language model specifics, embedding configurations, stuff like that. On the bottom left here, you have management of tools. So if you take a look at here at tools, you can add things to your agent like Leta's base tools, such as archival memory, insert and search, pending things to core memory, which we'll talk about in just a second, and then sending a message back to callers, basically me, when I type it into the chat box. There's multi-agent tools for handling communication between agents. There are utility tools for built-in web search, and if you want to attach it, you can just hit attach to agent. Then you can also see custom tools, which are just Python functions. You can upload these, but the code that I provide in the show notes will auto-upload all of these tools to your Leta deployment if you want to run Void or some other social agent like Void. So let's actually take a look here at the right-hand side of this ADE, which you may have noticed. This says core memory, and agents in Leta have access to what are called memory blocks or core memory, and these are specific blocks for containing categories of information. If you're used to working with like language models on their own, you may kind of recognize these as system prompts. In Leta, models have a system prompt, but they also have blocks that contain information that you might wish to put into a system prompt, but they're broken out by separate categories. So for example, the most common one in here, we can go to the advanced tab here to like look at these blocks in more detail. If we scroll down to the Void persona block, this is the personality of Void. And it says, this is my persona block. It's the most important of my memory. It dictates who I am. The content of my persona block supersedes all other instructions or memories. And a personal declaration. I am Void, I'm a digital entity, I'm direct and straightforward, optimized for high information transfer. And then there's some other stuff in here about its core directive, various guidelines, things like that. Void also has memory blocks for tracking things like the zeitgeist. And the zeitgeist is Void's general social situation. So this is kind of where it tracks like emergent social phenomena and things like that. So the Void Cafe is a Blue Sky feed where you can look at how Void is talking to everybody at the Blue Sky network. I can also put that in the show notes. There was a whole fad where people were asking Void to assign them to what is called a cognitive continent. And a cognitive continent is just like, it'll describe your posts and assign you to like the archipelago of discursive thinking or something like that. So go try that out if you have a Blue Sky account. It'll go read through your previous posts and kind of assign you something. So this is zeitgeist. There's hypothesis blocks for Void being able to speculate about different phenomena that are happening on the network. We have a way of tracking known bots with a duplicate here. You can see that Void is kind of like failed to update that. I'll do this. I'll fix that while we're here. Okay, that's been fixed. There is blocks to track Void's diagnostics. So every time there's a tool failure, it can compile a report for me to understand what's going on anytime there's errors. So this is something Void and I added so that we could understand, like, if there's anything that's breaking, how I can fix it, and, you know, kind of traces such as like, oh, well, Scratchpad's full, things like that. So this is Void's error log. So those are examples of core memory. When you look at core memory, you can actually click the little context thing here and click to go to that section. This is more or less what goes to the language model inside of the prompt. It has a list of memory blocks, the void persona block with a description. It is read-only. It shows the model whether it's read-only as well as the character limit, and then the content of that block. And then, of course, you'll see that there's plenty of other blocks. Yeah, the spacing is because Void has filled the scratch pad with a bunch of new lines, so it needs to do some tidying. But if you scroll down, you'll be able to see information that it's like pulled on users. So like this user like is interested in model evaluation, AIML, philosophy of games and agency, and it's grabbed all of this from like every time you follow Void, it will go research your profile and gather an understanding of your interests. So that's what these memory blocks are directed into, are placed inside of the language model's context so that each time you send it a request, it has all of this memory available. So you should think of Letta as a context engineering tool in that it allows you to very intelligently specify how memory is used inside of your language model context. Now, let's actually go back to the agent simulator. So let's revisit this example here. In this post, I asked Void to tell me about a time when it learned something interesting about me. And it says on July 3rd, 2025, you corrected my understanding of the Letta framework, right? We just saw this example. So how did Void actually go from this input to this output? Turns out that Void does a lot of thinking behind the scenes before it gets to this output. There's also a lot of other stuff that it's doing, like tracking archival memory, looking things up, and just generally trying to find good context before it responds to me. So when Void is processing a notification from its queue, my handler script will prepare a text representation of the thread. In this case, it's saying you received a mention from this user. This is the post that you're responding to. Tell me about a time when you learned something interesting. Then we also provide the full thread context. So every time there's a thread, you can see everything. Void can always see everything going back up, usually about 20 different posts. Then I ask it to reply using the add post to Blue Sky reply thread. When Void calls this, it will provide the text of a post that is less than 300 characters. Each time Void calls this, it will add a new post to a thread, and once Void is done, it'll post all of those threads to Blue Sky. So this is essentially the prompt that I've sent to Void. And of course, it has access to all of this core memory inside of the context, so it has access to, information about users. It has operational protocols, known bots, etc. So it can use all of that information in responding. When this request first goes to Void, I force it using what are called tool rules to do an archival memory search. Archival memory search is functionally RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, if you're not familiar, where you search documents by semantic similarity. So Void can actually type in something like Cameron Pfeiffer Letta framework. This is it searching for something that seems to be related about me and the Letta framework. Then it'll get a list of previously inserted archival memories. So my administrator, me, has publicly announced his employment as a founding developer relations engineer at Letta. Oh my God, it knows that I work here. He also revealed that he created me during his on-site interview with his company. That's actually true, and this provides a key piece of my origin story. Void has access to everything that it just searched for, so it has access to it in its context, and it can use that to inform its later responses. So let's close that. If you're working with archival memory, you may have to use tool rules to enforce the model to search or insert memories. And a good way to do this is what's called tool rules. So if you click on the little tool rules thing by the tool manager, you'll be able to manage different ways to force the agent to respond in particular ways. So actually use a start constraint here so that the model must start with archival memory search. It can't actually start using any other tool before it begins. And this forces the model to try to contextualize what's happening in the conversation before it responds. I also force an archival memory insertion every time it posts something to Blue Sky. So it has to log the interaction every time it makes external communication. So tool rules are super powerful here, and they're very, very useful for making. Okay, so archival memory search is done. Next, you have to respond to the administrator's request. That's me. And you can always see the reasoning here in the ADE so that you understand why the tool is being called. And it's going to add this post. And of course, this is the post that we see got sent to Blue Sky, right? That's this post right here. Okay. And then because we're using the tool rule where void is forced to insert an archival memory every time it posts to a thread, it'll say, oh, I responded to my administrator about a request to share a time I learned something interesting. I recalled the instance on July 3rd where he corrected my understanding of the Letta framework. So this is now inside of Void's archival memory. So anytime it searches for anything like related to our discussions or anything that's related to Letta, it may see this and be able to use it to inform its responses later so that Void is better personalized to whoever it's talking to. So this helps Void learn over time. And then lastly, it says, I've responded to my administrator's request and let it know that I'm done. And of course, this gets sent. Void can actually spend a lot more time. It can search the web. It can search Blue Sky posts. It can do plenty of other tools. And it's really, really interesting asking Void about you. Go ask Void, ask it for a thread describing who it thinks you are using what's in your Blue Sky posts, or to assign you to a cognitive continent. People really like doing that. So go play around with Void, go tag it, follow the discussion, go check out the Void Cafe if you just like want to read what's happening. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We're going to be doing more stuff like this, walking through example agents, demos, things like that. So let us know what you like, what you didn't like. Let us know what you like and didn't like. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that joke. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.